Welcome everybody to the Wellness Policy. Excuse me. Oh my god.
That was good. Let's keep it.
Is that a bad omen for the start of the new year? Get me getting caught up. The weather is
seem very well, Wai.
Yeah, you know what? We're starting off with a baseline dry cough here because we're gonna take the better part of the next year, this year, I mean, to make ourselves good. And what better way to do that than with
Christ.
the good man, Jordan Goodman. Jordan Goodman is here. Welcome to another year, the second year of the Wellness Policy.
Thank you very much. The first time in my 36 years that someone made a pun out of my last name. If it's going to be someone, it may as well be the king of punny names, Mr. Wai Ting himself. Wai, it is a pleasure to be with you, year 2 of the Wellness Policy. Look at us.
We made it. We made it through a whole entire year. And along for the ride, of course, is all the people joining us live in Zoom. Every month we do one of these, and typically at 3 o'clock on a Thursday. So we encourage everybody to join us live if you can. And we encourage all the people that are in the room today to be able to chime in on the conversation. Because this is the new start of a new year of the Wellness Policy, things are going to be a little bit different. First of all, you'll notice that if you're listening on archive, this is a show that is now found exclusively on the POST Wrestling Café feed. So it is continues to be free, of course. I always wanted to make the show free, but you have to go and seek it, which kind of makes me feel like a bit less. I think I feel like a bit more open, knowing that, like, you know, it's a bit more of an enclosed audience. People who are listening to this are people that are actively seeking it rather than just people who are, you know, just getting it automatically in their post wrestling feed. So thank you for making the time if you're listening to this right now. And also on YouTube, we're still available in video form at youtube.com/postwrestling. But hello everybody in the chat room.
Wait, how much reservation had you felt the past year? I guess sharing especially more about your own personal experience.
I mean, a little, yeah. I always feel a bit of it, you know, and even doing the regular podcast with John. I mean, my default is to think that people don't really care about, you know, that much about my personal life, and even if they do, I'm definitely more of a private, introverted person. So, doing a podcast like this, on the one hand, is very exciting, and I'm always incredibly happy to have an outlet like this. But at the same time, I mean, I kind of feel a bit of nervousness and anxiety before every show, just making sure that we are able to do a good job, and that, you know, I'm always kind of self-conscious about, especially people who don't necessarily care about this type of content, what they might think.
Fair enough. I think a little anxiety every now and then could be a good thing. Some eustress, as we call it in the business.
Eustress?
But yeah, you've never heard EU.
No,
stress?
What does that mean?
Eustress. So essentially, I know a fair amount about how the stress response works in our bodies. But eustress is the term for what we call quote unquote good stress. So for instance, perhaps you feeling a bit of that, as I often do before we go live doing one of these things. It is essentially adaptive, productive messages that our body is signaling to us, saying, yo, something important is about to happen, so pay attention.
Almost like a sign that you care about what you're about to engage in.
You give a shit, yeah. And we experience that physiologically in very similar ways in which we experience more uncomfortable types of fear or anxiety or nervousness or even excitement. So our heart may race, our palms may get sweaty, and so on. But the key is being able to interpret all those physiological changes as healthy and adaptive and a sign that we're doing something worth doing.
And that is why here in the chair that he is, everybody, Jordan Goodman here. Jordan, you know, prior to this, I think the way we've been doing these shows, last year, I mean, we decided to start these shows by actually having books that we would spend the entire month to read before talking about it. Over the course of the year, I think we've become more and more lazy about how much prep and how much
Speak for yourself, Wai.
We
did the book thing because you wanted to. No?
Oh, I loved it. You know, and it's still something I want to do. But I'm just contrasting with maybe how we ended off the year, where we stopped doing the book thing, and then we, would be like, okay, let's like plan the topic a month in advance, and then it would be like, let's make the topic the week before, and then this one was almost like 5 days before the show, we didn't know what the topic was going to be. And I'll go as far as to say behind the curtain that even the day before, I didn't have a completely solid grasp of what we were going to talk about. So, Jordan, care to reveal to the audience what we ultimately landed on and what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, I think the target will be somewhere within a goal setting, given that it's January and New Year's resolutions is a very common practice in our society. So that makes sense. Look, I've been trying to talk about weed for months with you, Wei Ting. So it's not like I'm not trying to do some pre-production or some planning.
And I think
But
that's to
you
come.
being
I felt like 420, or at least like in April, might have been a more brand worthy day to do a weed topic. But okay, sure.
And with that, you would be correct. And with that logic, yes, goal setting within the month of January makes complete sense. I think you and I are probably going to, I don't know, maybe think about it a bit more holistically. Look, we already did a whole episode on habit formation. But what's the point of forming habits if you don't necessarily have any goals or targets or just greater intentionality for what you're trying to aim for with those new habits? So I think I'd be interested in having some conversation, not just between you and I, but the others in Zoom with us right now, about questioning like why certain goals or why certain intentions. Do we have any strategies or processes for figuring out what we want to bring to our future selves? And then also, that doesn't always happen. We struggle along the way, and it would be interesting to chat about what we do in those moments when we either lose interest or come up short, or get distracted for whatever the reason may be. Hey, a global pandemic may smack you in the face, and then all your goals and priorities may radically change. So, yes, we're in agreement upon that.
I think so, absolutely. And I'm actually quite excited with what the topic might entail, because it's a lot more than I think, simply the idea of setting goals too. In particular, I'm very curious, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind sharing your opinion about New Year's resolutions. Do you make them yourself? How do you view them? Yeah.
So I typically don't. I like the fact that it is, let's say, a shared cultural practice because I think it is really healthy and important for us to at least have some sense of structure where annually we can assess, hey, what's going on in our lives? Is this still working? Does this still feel good? If not, what can I do to change it? And bringing some more awareness and intention around getting clear on this is a goal I'd like to accomplish. This is a lifestyle or habit or whatever it may be, change that I'd like to bring upon in my life. Things don't happen in which we're control of it without awareness. So really the point of New Year's resolution is to create some awareness about what we want. In that sense, we're responding to our life instead of merely reacting to the circumstances of our lives. So with all that said, it's not something I typically do, but for whatever the reasons may be, I have naturally been someone throughout my life to be very curious and very interested in achieving all types of certain things, creatively, artistically, career-wise, and so on. Last year, I actually did a version of it with a vision board, and it was the first time I really sat down and did a vision board exercise with my girlfriend. The wellness policy was one of many things that was visually represented on the vision board. And I'm happy to report that I would argue we were pretty successful in that pursuit for all of last year.
What
So
is
the
a
vision board,
board?
again,
Can you explain
so,
what that is?
sure. Essentially, it is a visual representation of, let's say, things, whether it's ideas, actual physical objects, and so on that you want to bring into your life in the future. Oftentimes, with something like a vision board, you may hear that thrown around with like the book or concept of law of attraction. And essentially, I think the value in it is making your ideas, your visions, your dreams, your goals, etc. These things that are immaterial because they're just thoughts or desires within us, making these things more material by putting it onto a physical board. So the vision board that I had last year had words. It had pictures that I cut out from magazines that represented certain things. And essentially, it was a physical manifestation of stuff that I wanted to bring into my life over the next year. And one of the, let's say, strategies with it was putting it in a place where I would see it every day, multiple times a day. And the point is that if we're keeping this stuff top of mind, then it's much more likely that we'll have greater awareness around bringing it into our future experience.
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, from what it sounds like, like a sort of like a mind map. Is a term that I'm familiar with. Is that what you're sort of getting at? Basically, something that is a visual representation of this particular state of mind that you might have, where you might feel motivated to achieve and attain certain things.
Totally. I mean, look, I literally just wrote the wellness policy on the vision board, and that was just a way of committing in a more tangible way, let's say, to the project of the wellness policy. I also had a picture of one of my favorite musicians in a pose that was interesting and inspiring to me. And the point of having that musician on the vision board was more, I related to a certain spirit and connection with him. So it's not like the goal was to necessarily meet him, let's say, or to listen to more of his music, but the ways in which he inspires me, that makes me feel something, that primes my energy in a certain way. So when I saw his face in that particular pose, it helped prime me in a more optimal energy state to then be able to execute on the shit that I actually want, instead of being in a lower energy state where I may get more lazy, or I may be more pessimistic, or feel less confidence.
Can you say who it is?
Jimmy Haha from Jimmy's Chicken Shack. You probably do not know him, but in fact, I actually ran into him and caught up with him during the Christmas vacation. So I actually did attract him physically into my life as well.
Wow, there you go. You can, who knows who you'll meet if they were on a vision board. I think that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I tend to do things like this myself, but like what I do instead is just more like I have a whiteboard where I list my certain things, and then among them there might be a section where I have certain goals, and it's a constant reminder throughout the year of like where I'm at. And I'll say though, this year I'm not somebody who makes goals every single year. I kind of get into like phases where one year, like, come December or maybe even January, if my goals are a bit later, I'll get very motivated, whether it be through a conversation with friends, or maybe I watched a great documentary or something, and I'll suddenly want to like, here's all the things I want to accomplish, and it'll come out there. And then another year may pass and I won't feel so motivated and I won't make goals that year. And I'll say, I think last year was definitely a year of motivation. This year it feels like it's the start of a year of the other end, where I'm not as motivated. I haven't made any new goals, and I'm starting to wonder why that is. And I think at least a part of it is because I feel like I still have goals that I haven't really accomplished from the past year, and if I haven't achieved those ones, part of me feels like I shouldn't be making new goals that I worry that I'll ultimately not accomplish. Do you ever feel this way?
So I don't know if I make it as concrete as putting it on, a vision board or a whiteboard as far as like specific things. And then
we'll talk a bit about that. Like, if it's not specific, like, is there an issue where you can put something up there that might be too vague and you don't really know where to start?
Yes, absolutely. So look, I think one of the smartest ways to do it is, and I don't know if I'm going to get the acronym exactly right, but we call them SMART goals, and SMART is an acronym. And basically, the theory is that the more specific we can be, the more we can measure progress and so on, then it's much more likely we'll be able to accomplish these things. It's been rare in my experience to at least document stuff like that. Now, during this pandemic, much of my financial realities were upended, let's say. And one of the things that I had done was started a new business around career coaching more generally. And with that, I had a specific measurable goal in mind of a certain amount of weekly paying clients at a certain rate per hour. But I didn't necessarily put a timetable on it. So if I was really going all the way, then I could have been even more specific with it. So that's like one example of, I guess, creating a goal with some specificity. But again, I didn't necessarily know what was realistic. I didn't know if my target was more idealistic and so on. And then as I continued to chip away at it, I continued to reassess the target. So for you, you're saying you're looking at a whiteboard and maybe there's a few things on there that haven't been accomplished at the level in which you initially intended. And perhaps because of that, you may feel less motivation or feel less confidence or paralyzed by that. I would argue that it's probably a good idea every now and again to reassess the goals, because maybe the initial target was a bit lofty. Maybe it doesn't even make sense to be attacking a certain goal 6 months later because maybe you just don't want that anymore. I would argue that a lot of people, especially when it's related to career, 20 years go by and they realize, fuck, I didn't even want to be doing this for the past 15, but yet I kind of fell into a rhythm, I fell into a routine or a groove. It was easier to stick with what I had than creating the friction of change, even if change was more desirable. So I think it's good to assess every now and then, whether it's monthly, whether it's annually around this time of year, to ask ourselves, do I even want that thing anymore?
It's a very interesting concept, that of goal reassessment, and not something I've really kind of thought about before. Because like in my mind, okay, January comes around, especially this is true of resolutions. It comes around, you set your goals, and then you leave them for the entire year until January. And I mean, I don't know if, I'm sure for every single person, there's a different time of like, what makes sense, when it makes sense to reassess. But you're suggesting to continue to, think about whether or not these goals make sense for you. But it's an interesting, perhaps, oxymoronic type of situation, isn't it, though? Because goals, I feel like they come with a level of commitment to them, right? The reason I want to say I want to get fit for the year is because I want to try to commit to getting fit. But at the same time, how do we commit to something when we are able to say, hey, maybe in 6 months, this can change? Do you find that balance?
I guess what comes to mind with a question like that, when you say, well, the goal is to get fit this year, I would go a level deeper, because I think once we start bringing our emotional selves to the equation, to the practice, that's when these things become a bit more concrete and motivation becomes a bit more attainable. So if the goal, let's say, is to get more fit, whatever that means, measurably, I think it's important, no matter what the goal is to answer why. And the why is the stickiness that helps keep the fire burning. So perhaps, hey, I just had a new child. I want to get physically fit because I want to make sure over the next 15 years I can play with that child and spend a lot of time with him or her. So I think once we start getting into answering why and bringing the emotions associated with that, then especially when we start losing confidence or when we start feeling a bit lazy, or if it starts to feel hard, if we can reconnect with the emotional resonance that motivated us in the first place, I think we're setting ourselves up for much more success.
A lot of people congratulating you in the chat room right now, Jordan, on the announcement of the new child.
Oh, yeah, because my Jewish mother always wanted it to be announced on a pro wrestling podcast that is now in the hidden gems section of the post wrestling universe.
Oh, come on, people! This is worth seeking out for this type of information.
Ooh, that gold.
That thing. So
let me ask you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, I'm curious for you. The idea I shared of kind of marrying emotional resonance.
By the way, everybody, Jordan, as far as I know, does not have a child on the way. That was just an example.
Yeah, no, I
as the Mazel Tovs
the
Mazel Tovs continue to pour in the chat room.
Yeah, no, as
far as you know,
as far as I know, but the condoms seem to be working so far.
Oh my.
Dude, the emotional resonance piece that I just suggested, I'm wondering if that's something in which you've used in your goal setting, or if that's more of a novel idea.
I think subconsciously, I mean, ultimately, that's what you're talking about, right? Why do we desire something? There is going to be always a subconscious sort of attachment to why we want to get fit, why we want to be rich, why we want to, I don't know, be creatively fulfilled. And I can't necessarily say I've taken the time to kind of dive deeper into, knowing why I want certain things, why I want my career goal to be a certain way. And it's good to, it honestly is. Cause some of the goals that I have are many of the goals I have are definitely attached to career and the success of, the business that John and I have built. And rather, like, I think especially when you are running something like a business, there's always the desire to just do better than you did the past year, because if you're not improving, then you're lagging behind. But I guess like it is, now that I think about it, important to think about, well, why is it that we want to be more successful than we did last year? Should we not just be happy enough that all of these other needs are fulfilled? And maybe I should be. I guess like now I'm rambling, everybody, but this is the type of podcast that we're doing, where a lot of the thoughts are coming out as we're saying it. But I think there's perhaps a fear, in the back of my mind that, if we don't keep up, if we don't improve, I mean, we don't want to succumb to competition. We want to make sure that, our website, everything that we provide is still going to be a destination for people when inevitably there are going to be more and more choices. And obviously, John and I want to be able to create a sustainable income for the two of us and our families in the years to come. So if you want to dig a bit deeper, I suppose that's it. And then when it comes to reassessing my goals, and please, step in here if you feel like, there's something that you want to suggest. But I think maybe it would be for me to be able to say, are we losing like any of our viewership? Is that going down? How are we at threat of like losing our source of income? And I would say over the past year, even if I didn't necessarily hit the targets that I wanted to, absolutely not. In fact, I feel like we've grown slightly. Maybe not to the level that I wanted, but like, we have definitely grown. So I don't know. Does any of my rambling make sense to you?
Completely. And I relate to much of it, given that for much of my life, I have wanted to be my own boss. And now I have had other jobs. The one that most listening to this would be interested in is me having a full-time job with Ring of Honor. Now, look, at the time in my life, there was nothing more than I wanted than that. Like the emotional weight of that desire was it was me chasing like the hottest, sexiest toy or girl or whatever object you want to substitute for of desire. Like Ring of Honor was that for me, and it was very easy for me to be focused and to put in so much of my effort and intentionality with zero guarantees that anything would ever happen. But I was laser focused on that prize, and I kept pushing and pushing until I found a way to make that the reality of my day-to-day life. Now, I still didn't necessarily want a boss, let's say, but I also didn't want to start my own fucking wrestling company. That does not seem interesting to me. So if I wanted to play in the sandbox of pro wrestling at a very high level, then that meant I needed to go get a job and have a boss or a couple bosses. And so that's what I did. But in general, I like and prefer to be my own boss. Part of what I negotiated with Ring of Honor was to be able to maintain the many businesses that I've grown throughout my lifetime, because I wanted to have something outside of my life, or a few somethings outside of just pro wrestling from a career perspective, and that also gave me leverage because at the end of the day, I didn't need their paycheck, I didn't need the job, and then it allowed me to continue cultivating my other career pursuits. I think a trap that many of us fall into, though, is what you mentioned about making sure that we're making more every year. Okay? I'd argue you just need to make enough to supplement the lifestyle that you desire. So there's plenty of people that think I have to make 150 grand a year in order to feel good about myself. When really, if they were just making, I don't know, maybe 85 a year, they would be happier. And I mean, and it's really, the numbers are arbitrary, but this idea that there needs to be an increase in revenue each year, sometimes that can be a false target. That's why I think that publicly traded companies oftentimes are at a disadvantage, because the game that they're playing is so fucking short-term and short-sighted, where they have to show incremental financial growth every quarter. And in doing so, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, because oftentimes they're not planning for the future. And if they are planning for the future, they have to be successful in arguing that case to shareholders. What's interesting about a company like AEW for me is that they are not publicly traded, and thus someone like Tony Khan does not have to necessarily make more. He just has to make enough for it to be sustainable, dependent on his targets of financial stability for the business. WWE, however, one of the biggest critiques that you and many have had for a long time now is their inability to perhaps plan for the future. And in that sense, I think often what you see as a product now is death by 1,000 paper cuts. So look, I bring that up because I think one of the things from a career perspective that many of us kind of miss is that financial growth year after year, quarter after quarter, needs to be the goal. My goal more specifically would be, am I happier? You know, am I living a lifestyle that suits me, that is desirable for me? Again, I want to put myself in a position where my shit's not going to crumble. So yes, you want to make sure that you're continuing to bring value to your listeners and your viewers and your patrons. You want to make sure that you're still state of the art and paying attention to what others in the wrestling media landscape are doing, so you can be cutting edge and see trends around the corner and perhaps potential threats to your business and so on. But if the goal is to just increase revenue, and if your financial reality doesn't necessitate that? I'm tripping up on my words. Necessitate. I've never said that, actually. Look at that. If you're making enough to live, then focus on adding value to the people paying attention to you, instead of making just more money the goal.
Right. Are we talking about, essentially, like, we're talking about plateaus, aren't we? And I think we can extend this to athletics as well, whether it be like, you might be lifting weights and you have a target that you want to be able to lift, and you might reach that and you might plateau. and you might be incredibly frustrated that you're not able to move above it. I experienced this in jujitsu where, like when you're starting off, you experience like a really great ascent that's pretty quick, but then, in due time you reach a level where you're simply just not getting better, and it can be incredibly frustrating. And I think for myself and for a lot of people, it gets to the point where it kind of starts making the entire thing not that enjoyable, the entire experience not that enjoyable to begin with. So from what I gather, you're suggesting, not to be so concerned about constant improvement, but to be able to assess whether or not simply the act of doing it and achieving it at the level that you're currently plateaued at, whether or not that's working for you and whether or not you're enjoying it at the moment.
I think the punchline is to just continually reassess what we're looking to get out of it. What's the story that we're telling ourselves about this specific journey? So, for instance, if your goal is to level up in jujitsu, which I'm very ignorant about, but if the goal is to do the certain things to move up in the ways you traditionally think about moving up and getting different belts and so on, well then yeah, it's a bit more concrete that if you don't learn these techniques and demonstrate this type of advancement, then you're not going to get the next belt. But perhaps that isn't the goal for you to be doing jujitsu. Maybe the goal is to spend more time with a couple friends that are training with you. So the point that you just keep showing up and you're hanging with your friends and you're having a good time and it gives you some physical exercise, and because of all that, you feel happier and healthier. That could be the point of it. And it isn't necessarily developing the skill of the thing that you're doing. So again, I think that the punchline is getting clearer continually on what are we actually trying to make happen underneath the what's under the hood of what we're.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Really, really interesting and solid advice, Jordan. It's helping me kind of reassess my perspective and my goals perhaps for the year. But as well,
Dude, if I can say, look, if my goal was to make the most money by my mid-30s, I certainly would not have chosen the many career paths that I've chosen for myself. My goal, yes, of course, was to make enough to sustain a desirable lifestyle. But I also know that I'm going to die at some point. My mortality is something that motivates me incredibly, and it's something I keep top of mind as much as I can. And knowing that, then, it's motivated me to experience music and experience mental health and experience pro wrestling, the things that I naturally am interested in that give me energy, that make me feel alive. I've had a desire to experience all of these different things at really high levels where I feel like I can leave it better than how I found it. And that's really what motivates me. I want to live a meaningful life. So by the time that I'm going to die, and if I'm afforded the privilege of a deathbed in which I can think back on how I lived my life, I don't want to feel regret. And to ask for a job at Ring of Honor or to try to make music something that supports me financially. Those were fucking terrifying, dude. They really were, for all kinds of reasons, because, it didn't feel viable. If I got rejected, it would break my heart, and so on. But what was scarier than all that was the thought that one day I may be at the end of my opportunity to live, and I would regret not trying. And that's what I'm trying to get at with emotional resonance when it comes to setting goals.
I feel like it's important to mention, though, there are people in less privileged than you or I who have the ability to be able to make a choice, to be able to follow perhaps our creative goals, that don't have those options, that have no other option but to focus on making money to provide for a family and whatnot. What would you say to people who, whether they come from different backgrounds from you or I, or people who just simply have experienced traumas in the past where they greatly fear, for instance, becoming broke or being, without a proper home and whatnot. What would you say to people who are more of that sort of thinking?
One, I'll completely validate what you're suggesting. Yes, you're right. We all have our relative privilege and our relative handicaps. But what I often try to think about is, are other people able to pull it off? So if your goal is X and you're able to find evidence of other people out in the world, out of the 7 billion currently alive, that may have been given a similar hand in life and have had similar disadvantages, let's say, has someone else been able to do it? And if yes, well, then it's possible. And again, with all these things, it really comes down to a belief in its viability. Do we believe the thing is possible, and do we have enough belief in ourselves that we're able to do it? There's nothing that's guaranteed, and of course, we can't control all kinds of things in our own lives, but there are many controllables. And some of those things is showing up, and it's work ethic, and it's being able to devote time into certain skill development. And that's what at least for me, I try to see, like, if other people can do it, like, why can't I? Yes, of course, most of us have to earn a certain amount of income in order to survive. And for me, that had been the primary goal, which is why, at least for me, I went more into mental health, even though music and pro wrestling and other things felt more interesting and sexier. But I thought mental health at least would give me a solid enough foundation that would then allow me to explore things that gave me more energy. So yes, of course, we all have our disadvantages. I know I have had and continue to have more than my fair share of privilege, but work ethic is real, and belief in self is very real too. And if we don't have those things, then chances are slim we're going to accomplish anything that we truly care about.
Alex Francois in the chat room has his hand up, so we invite anybody, if they have something to add to the conversation, if something resonates about this to them, or if they have something to share, raise your hand in the Zoom room and we will go to your call. Let's go to Alex here. Alex, welcome to the Wellness Policy. What's up?
Hey guys, how you doing? All good?
Doing great. Thank you for joining us.
What's up, man?
No, definitely. When I saw the link come through today, it couldn't have been better timing. Because basically the situation I found myself in the last 24 hours covers pretty much everything you guys have just mentioned. And also something that I'm going to be doing going forward. So I had some personal setbacks in the last days. It's greatly affecting things going forward. And it's taken that for me to realize I really need to do future and forward planning. It's just something that I've never, ever done before. I've never been able to put, what do you want to do in 5 years and things like that kind of, real life future planning. And today I actually had my first session with like a therapist and a careers coach and things, just to go back to one of the things Jordan was saying earlier. So I just wanted to chime in now because I won't be able to stick around for the whole show. So I've already enjoyed what I've heard so far, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest. But I kind of feel I come under what you were saying there, where you may feel you don't have the privilege to try new things or even put them on a board and aspire to them just from past circumstances and experiences and things like that. So I guess my main question would be, well, I don't really know. Honestly, I just haven't had anyone to talk to about this whole situation in the last 24 hours. And like I say, when this link came through with planning ahead for sorry, for some reason my front door's going. That minute I happened to call into a podcast. Sorry. Yeah, it's just been a real tough 24 hours. And a lot of it, the reason it happened is because I didn't plan. I've lived for the day to day as opposed to trying to go to the future. So
Did you say, Alex, that you've been seeing a career counselor?
I literally had my first one today. My first session with one, and it's something that I'll be honest, I would have probably I've laughed off in the past, because it's like, I know what I want to do, I can do it. And I think it's really taken him low to actually acknowledge that sometimes this advice is good.
Like only getting to whatever you're comfortable sharing. I mean, I'm kind of curious what a first session might have been like. Obviously, somebody like Jordan, I've had experience with, but I'm kind of curious about your experience, Alex, and whether or not you have any general advice from the meeting that you might be able to convey to our audience.
Well, yeah, no, it was great because initially I had a list of about 20 things that I thought I needed to work on a piece of paper that I'd been writing down. And what we learned was it's really 2 or 3 of those things will lead to the rest. So for me, it's having a belief in trying something new. So my industry's always just been in call centers and customer service. And I've never kind of, as much as I'd love to do something else, kind of branched out into anything else. And that's what I really want to get from these sessions I'll be having, is how to sort of believe in yourself a little bit that you can achieve these things and stuff. So, like I say, I just wanted to chime in because you mentioned so many things that were ticking boxes of my last sort of realizations myself in the last 24 hours or 36 hours or so. It was just, I'm really looking forward to listening to the rest of it and what Jordan has to advise, especially of how do you make that change?
Well, that's awesome, Alex, and thank you for sharing what seems like the start of a journey, and I hope to hear more successful updates from you.
That's what I hope to do as well. And like I say, I'm looking forward to catching the rest of this later on tonight when I get a chance to listen to it. But
get back to those calls.
Like the right place to getting in to have a word with someone who knows what's going on.
Thank you, Alex.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Take care.
Yeah, congrats and much respect. As I put in the comments, my internet was kind of tweaking out and I missed a good part of the call.
Just talking shit about you. It's like, Wai's great. That Jordan guy, not so much.
As they all do. Look, respect for taking responsibility for getting clear on what you want. I say that to Alex and anyone else choosing to do that. I have hired coaches, specifically career related. I have hired therapists as well. It is vulnerable. It's scary. It costs money and time. And more often than not, it's been some of the greatest investments I've made in my life. So, I mean, Wai, I know you kind of asked what his experience had been. I know, I shared, you were gracious in letting me kind of workshop a similar service for you in getting a bit clearer on what you want, especially from a professional perspective.
I mean, you were gracious to offer it, Jordan. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but I did want to share my experience with, I had a few sessions with Jordan about like a little over a year ago back in 2020. And I can say that those sessions directly led me to, formulating a lot of the goals and motivations that ended up on that whiteboard, for that year. And me at least being clear-headed enough to know what I wanted to achieve, and giving me a bit of direction. And beyond that, I mean, that was the basis for the creation of this podcast, knowing that I would be able to have these conversations with this guy. He's got an incredible mind. I can really kind of pick his brain on. And it's the type of podcast that, I obviously, the type of conversation I've been benefiting from that, I mean, I would hope that the audience would as well.
Totally. And funny enough, Wai, I was just trying to get on the fucking Christmas show. So it looks like we both won.
Hey.
Look, go ahead.
No. I was going to move on, but please finish your thought.
Well, just, in your question, like I've now over the past year or so, I've recently counted, I've done well over 400 professional or career coaching sessions over the past year with a few dozen different people. So I've started to notice just some patterns of what people are desiring and at least what I feel well equipped to help support people in. And yes, a lot of it is just getting clearer on what people want, especially from a career context. But a lot of the work that we do is unlearning. So most of us have grown up in a culture, whether it's the education system or our family system and so on, in which we often don't feel permission to say yes to things that we're actually interested in, And for me, obviously, music and pro wrestling are two of those big things. Many of us don't feel like we have permission to even consider finding a way to make money doing that. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients is helping them come into a clearer contact with deeply held beliefs that has created resistance from them going toward what they want. Once we kind of do that inner work of getting clearer on what we want and feeling permission that it's possible and permissible and all that, then what I found a lot of people want help with is more tactical. Okay, I now see what I want, but how the fuck do I make that happen? Whether it's promotion or networking or learning how to more effectively communicate and so on. So at least to help answer the question that you had for Alex, I've certainly seen what a lot of people are desiring as it relates to something like career counseling or coaching.
So something that I think Alex touched on, and something that was definitely applicable for me, that I think my conversations with you kind of really helped me with, was my sense of self-confidence. You mentioned permission. I mean, I would argue that much of that is related to a person's confidence to be able to, try something, or to be able to be confident enough to be selfish, to say, hey, this is what I want, and this is how I want to take my career, or this is what I want to change my business into. Is that something you've noticed too in your coaching?
Absolutely. And the word selfish is really interesting because oftentimes it has a negative connotation. But look, if we're not self-interested enough to create boundaries that are healthy for us, if we're not self-interested enough to pursue things that are desirable for us in life, well, then chances are we're not going to have the energy and the love and the kindness and the grace to give to others in life that we love. So sometimes being a bit more selfish actually sets us up to be more selfless, because then we have more of a capacity and more energy to be loving and to be empathetic and to be attentive to others in our lives. But yes, that is certainly, the word selfish comes up a lot. And yes, and look, this isn't an on-off switch. Many people may perceive me as very confident and very self-assured because I've had the balls or the audacity or the stomach to go out into the world and ask for big things that I desired. And then when I get it, I have to then do the thing. And that's often even scarier than asking for the thing. That doesn't mean that I am without self-doubt. Like, I have plenty of days where I do not feel confident. I have plenty of moments in which I don't know if I can do it, or if I feel like maybe I've peaked and so on. But I have strategies. I have accountability in the form of social support. I have all kinds of things that can help fill that up when I have the awareness that some of my, let's say, confidence is being depleted. But I think that's important. Like, I question myself all the time. I often have thoughts of, like, who am I to be doing this? I'm not good enough to be doing this. And I think most of us have that to some degree. It's just a matter of, okay, are we going to be responsible for that? Or are we going to play victim and just pin the responsibility on those beliefs, and then we're off the hook on actually trying to create what we want in our life?
I want to go back to some of these phone calls here, and I'm actually going to go to New Jersey. And the man himself, Brandon, has raised his hand if he is around. I believe last time he was talking, he was on a treadmill. Brandon from New Jersey, are you currently on a treadmill?
What's up, man? Nah, it was an assault bike, but I'm off it now. I had enough time to shower up and get dressed and whatnot. So what's going on, man? Thanks for taking
wonderful.
my call. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for wanting to contribute. What's on your mind?
Brandon,
what's up?
When you shower, do you use conditioner?
No, well, I use the shampoo and conditioner in one, the 2-in-1 pack.
Oh, look at you. Look, we learn something new every day with Brandon from New Jersey.
Wait, you don't do that? Wait, you don't do that?
Not typically. Typically, I do the shampoo and then the conditioner.
What about the soap to exfoliate your skin? Do you have that?
Not necessarily an exfoliant soap, but I often soap.
Do you guys use bar soap or loofah?
Oh, loofah, totally, man.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I've been doing some liquid soap more recently without the loofah.
Oh, just a little liquid soap on your hand.
Yeah,
That type of
and
thing?
just the hand. I only soap the hands.
Interesting.
Hey, man, you
Then
know what they
wash
say
them
about a
with
bird in the hand, right?
Yes, yes,
Anyway,
yes.
okay, back on topic. You were talking about goals and whatnot, and I don't have that memory board that you have, but I have like a journal of just like jotting down goals and whatnot. And it's funny. I was looking when you guys were talking about the board and whatnot, and Wei was talking about jotting his goals down and whatnot. I dug into my shoebox. I have like seven goal books in there, and like a quarter of them weren't met, and I felt such disappointment. But maybe it was meant to be to not achieve those goals and to open up a new door of other goals that you want to do. Maybe those goals would have deviated me from probably talking to you today and whatnot. So
are those goals? I mean, going back to what Jordan was saying, are these things that you still want today?
no, these goals I don't think they were sports oriented goals, like in wrestling and in like off the field stuff, like before I found my job where I'm at today. I don't think these goals, because I mean I've had an ACL surgery. I don't think I could meet the goals that I wanted to do that I could have done when I was younger. But I mean they were interesting goals. But I mean age is playing a part in meeting those goals. But I know age is just a number. But
So, I don't want to cut you off, but at the same time, like, hearing you like specifically mention these things, I mean, it's applicable to me, but I also kind of want to like, just dig a bit deeper, knowing now like what Jordan has suggested, if we could put that into practice. So when you set these like very sports specific goals, I mean, was there something that's more underlying that you were hoping to accomplish, outside of like, for instance, winning a medal? Like, why did you want to win that medal?
I mean, I could have parlayed that into a better education if I met the goal and if I trained harder to do that goal when I was younger and whatnot. I mean, I ended up going
scholarship.
Well, yeah, correct. Okay. And I mean, I ended up going to junior college and trying out that way. But I mean, anyway, yeah. I mean, I wish I could have.
So the goal really was to get to a better school, not necessarily to win the medal.
And not pay for and be in student debt and pay for an not have to pay for my education. But regardless, okay. I mean they were nice goals, but I mean maybe it was a sign that I wasn't meant to do that, and I was meant to do other stuff in life.
Well, why did you want to get to a better school? Let's keep going here.
I mean, get a better job, right? I mean, I don't know if the goal in life was to be where I'm at right now. I mean, I'm. Don't get me wrong. Like I dig. I mean, and not everybody. I mean, I don't know. I there's a love and hate with the shoot job I have and whatnot. Sometimes I love it, but the check is great, so I'm not gonna complain and begrudge that aspect of it. But I mean, if I got a better education, maybe I could be doing something better. You know what I mean? I mean, and they always say, like, with education, never give up on it. But I got ADD, so with subjects and stuff like that, I always got bored and ended up doing something else. You know what I mean? That's the crutch of my life, basically. Like I just get really bored with stuff real easy. But yeah, that's
Brandon, I relate to that as far as getting bored easily. Like I know formal education was not a good fit for me because I realized, like I don't remember anything that they taught me, because when I thought back on it, I was stuck in my head all day daydreaming about stuff related to music and pro wrestling. So it was until really I started smoking weed, it was hard to focus on things like that. The one thing that comes to mind for me, Brandon, again, I'm not sure like how accomplished or not you were in athletics, but I have an example that I think would be of value to you and certainly to valuable to I think a lot of people listening. He's fine with me sharing about his story, but I'm not necessarily going to use his name. One of my coaching clients 10 years ago was in a band and signed to a major label and performed live on MTV and toured arenas globally, all throughout Europe and the States and so on. And that eventually stopped happening. And he had since transitioned into a different career path. And look, story is everything. And often the most significant stories are the ones that we tell ourselves, often unconsciously, where we're not even fully aware of the stories that kind of shape the reality of our lives. What I mean by that is that this guy who did accomplish his dream of getting a major label record deal, earning a living, touring the world, performing to thousands of people, he had been living for the past 10 years with this belief or this story that he was a failure. And for me, and actually, like when he and I were talking, and I shared about Ring of Honor, and then I got to work this project, and we sold out Madison Square Garden. And then as soon as we finished that, I decided to leave the company. And his response to that when I shared was, well, like it doesn't that kind of suck? Because do you feel like you'll never get to that peak again? And I said, actually, no. In fact, quite the opposite. I feel so good about the fact that I was able to experience that. And it gives me a sense of self and confidence that I can do other interesting things in the future. And what we really uncovered over the past year and has successfully helped him find better work that's more enjoyable for him and meaningful for him is that I helped him see that all of the things that he did and learned and became in his pursuit of being a professional musician, like all of that is still applicable. So when he walks into a job interview, he can now like imagine that he's walking onto stage and he can bring all of that aliveness and all of that energy. All of the entrepreneurial skills that he learned to become successful as a musician, like he still has access to all of that stuff. Like this guy knows how to entertain people. He knows how to market himself. He knows how to sell. He knows how to engage. He has empathetic skills. Like, and the story he told himself was that I failed, and because of that, he really let go of all of this let's say inner capital that he had access to, all of this positive energy, all of this self-confidence, all of these skills. And once we tweaked the story and he started seeing that, you know what, he actually accomplished his dream, he was successful from a certain perspective, and that all of those experiences and skills acquired he can still use in other ways in life, like that in many ways was like a light switch that turned on for him. And his life has been dramatically improved just because of him telling himself an accurate but more supportive, productive story. So I say all that to say, Brandon, again, I'd imagine if you did athletics at a certain level, I'd imagine you learned discipline and you learned the value of continuing to show up, and you learned how to deal with setbacks and all these different things. And perhaps maybe like owning some of that or recapturing some of that, bringing back the fire to the surface of your life in which you felt like a competitive athlete. Like, I think if you start operating more from that energy level, perhaps other things in life could be more interesting. I don't know. How do you feel?
Oh, I agree with you 100% on those tenets. You're right. I mean, you do learn that in athletics. I mean, you do learn, like, even if you're struggling, you don't give up and whatnot, and you keep pushing forward and all this coach speak and stuff like that. I mean, that's all true. I mean, I agree with you 100%. And I mean, maybe I should apply those to my personal life and my goals in life and whatnot. I mean, I appreciate that advice.
I mean, I admire the fact that you're always working out whenever you're calling into one of these shows. You know, if I could even work out, period, I'd be at some form of regularity. I think I'd be very happy.
Wait, before the pandemic hit, like the goal was one of my goals was to build a gym at my house, and like because I didn't like lifting with people and working out with people. Because I mean, and now with the pandemic, I mean that shit spreads in close confined spaces. So it's just me in my own gym. So I mean that goal was met. I'm happy with that.
That's awesome. Congratulations to you, Brandon.
Thank you, man. But I have goals too. Like I would like to write more. I mean, like I would like to prove my fifth grade teacher wrong and saying when she told me that that I wouldn't be able to write from a menu, let alone be a writer. I would like to prove her wrong one day. But
you had
yeah,
to say that.
yeah, that got heat from my mom big time. She was pissed off about that. But I mean, there's goals like that I would like to achieve. But
what would you write about?
I like. I mean, you see those the nonsense meanderings. I would like. I have ideas of like writing events and adding satire to those events and stuff like that, like pro wrestling or MMA or stuff like that. Like Bill Simmons did that one. I think page 3 about UFC. I think it was 7. I guess he went to an event and he totally eviscerated the show with satire and whatnot. And that's something that I would like to do, and I've tried to do.
I don't read many MMA reviews, but I would certainly read yours, Brandon. That sounds incredibly fascinating.
Well, I appreciate you, and I hope the new year brings great joy to you guys and to everyone, and anyone that is discouraged should not be discouraged, and share your opinions on the wellness policy, because it brings positive vibes to my life, sharing stuff like this with you guys. So thank you guys.
Thank you,
Brandon. We love you, man.
We love you. I love you, Wai.
Oh, likewise. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Brandon, as always, for your contributions to all of our podcasts. Let's go to Kevin up next. Kevin, thank you for waiting patiently. You are on the wellness policy. What's up?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Hey, man.
First time, long time. I don't know. I'm nervous as hell, but I'm here. What's up?
Hey, don't be. We're just all regular people. Thank you so much for taking the time and having the courage to call in. What's up?
Thank you. Yes, you're an anxious king.
Kevin.
Yes. What's up?
Is this in your profile picture? Is that a real cat?
Yeah. She's on my lap, actually. So.
Wow, that is a great picture. Look at that.
Hell yeah. Nah, goals, like shit that comes to mind when I think of goals, it's like you just got to be kind to yourself. You got to be good with yourself going into it. That's kind of like the prequel to sitting down and starting your goal setting process. You don't want to be too hard on yourself. You want to constantly remind yourself that kind of like Wai was saying earlier, where shit like just having different privileges from people, like just stuff that's out of your control can happen along the way. So just be good with yourself and just don't feel bad if you have to use the edit button or hit it with a comma, shit like that. But that's what comes to mind. Don't be too hard on yourself. There's going to be rainy days that we can't control. I don't know.
And again, it kind of calls to mind, like, how do we find the balance between being able to push ourselves and at the same time trying to be kind to ourselves? And you can't help but think about athletics and think about how, the coach has to be kind of equal parts stern and at the same time, encouraging. Jordan, do you have any thoughts on finding that balance for ourselves?
Well, look, there's no right or wrong answer. All of us are different, and the goals are different, depending on what we want or in some cases need to achieve. Yes, I do think in general, being kind to ourselves, look, I've kind of made that a catchphrase for many years with different communities. So I think that is certainly the way to go. I would argue that if we become, let's say, a bit lazy or fearful or stagnant in ways in which we are no longer actively pursuing a goal which is still in our best interest, well, then that's not being kind to ourselves. So again, there needs to be some friction. There needs to be some sense of destabilization or discomfort if we're creating any change. And that can be a form of self-love and self-kindness to push ourselves. I know, at least for me, it helps to have accountability. So, Wai, you are one of the handful of people in my life where we talk fairly regularly, and I'm very open with you about how things are going in my life, and you've been very kind and have afforded me a space to share. And there are other people in my life like that. So I'll sometimes lean on others to help, like, let's say, like, create guardrails in case I feel like I'm falling off. And sometimes others can be that kick in the ass. Sometimes others can be the voice that is a bit kinder to myself. But yeah, like anything in life, balance is the key. This is a great example of that. And yes, if we are not doing the thing that we ultimately know is in our best interest, then that's a form of not being kind to ourselves. Again, it just comes down to awareness around these things.
Word.
Thank you so much for the call, Kevin. Much appreciated.
Hell yeah.
Please call.
Thank you, brother.
Shout out to the Discord. Shout out to everybody. Hell yeah. I'll be on again.
Shout out to the Puzzles channel. All right,
Yes.
where everybody logs in at midnight and shares their Wordle scores. So it's
How long do we predict this will continue on?
the Wordle craze.
It'll be like Angry Birds.
Yeah, I'm guessing a month or two. Probably. Dickie in the chat says 2 weeks.
No.
They have to like change it. I think we'll see some variation. Oh, we are already seeing variation. There's football, the football Wordle. You ever play that?
I just the one day, but I don't know shit about soccer.
Yeah.
No, have we peaked? Is this like Omicron in the East Coast? Have we peaked with Wordle?
There will be a second wave. There will be a mutation, I'm sure. I'm still enjoying it. Every midnight, anytime like midnight strikes, I have something to look forward to. So I'm
agreed.
I'm after my 1 out of 6, man. I'll get it someday. Let's go up next to Chris Elliott. Chris, thanks for joining us on the Wellness Policy. What's up?
Good evening, gents. How are we doing?
Nice to hear from you.
Lovely,
Doing very
Chris.
well.
I give it a few weeks.
How are you doing? Like, what's the closest? What's the lowest? I guess number you've had.
I think the lowest I got was 3.
3. That's
pretty good.
Most of mine have been like 5s and 6s. So, but at least I'm getting there and I'm getting them. So it's
doing it is half the battle.
Well, yes, this is true. What I was calling for really was, I think I've kind of set myself a goal for the year, and obviously I've kind of been up for the last however long with my mental health and everything. I've missed like a lot of family get-togethers, occasions with friends and stuff like that. And the back end of last year, I was starting to get a bit better with it. I'd managed to get to go to one of my cousin's weddings, and I think that built a lot of confidence in me, within myself. And I think the goal is to try and get to more stuff, to do more stuff. And I've kind of set myself a bit of an ambitious goal. The BWE and Grapple lads announced their live podcast on Monday, and I've made it my goal. I'm gonna go to that show, and I'm gonna get there and have a good time and try and see if I can conquer that as a hill to get over for my mental health. And it's a big jump, but I think the fact that I've given myself a few months of like a bit of a run up at it, if you know what I mean, and to try and just like, okay, I can do this. I've got it. So
that's a wonderful goal, Chris. I think you will have a fantastic time. You will be amongst friends. You'll be amongst like-minded people. You'll be amongst fellow wrestling fans. Some of which may feel similar trepidation about meeting strangers on the internet for the first time. But if it's anything like the audiences and the experiences that we've seemed to have with our share of the post wrestling community, coupled with of course Grapple and Graps and Claps on this at this event, I think you'll have a great time. So that's a great little kind of project, or at least something to look forward to.
Yeah, it was just something. I'd seen the announcement, and he's in the chat there. Shout out to Dickie for his fantastic video that was put out. But it's I'm really looking forward to it, and I've already been talking to a couple of people who might possibly be going, and we can have a little post get together over on this side of the Atlantic.
Please send us a photo.
I'm sure there'll be all kinds.
That's awesome, man. And I have a sense even you, again, similar to a vision board or some other strategies, like you just showing up in this kind of public way and saying this out loud, I think makes it much more real and perhaps manageable. I'm looking in the comments. I see Dickie Bird is hoping to FaceTime with you there, and in that sense, I'd imagine that's some like really nice social support. So this sounds like a really significant and good thing for you, bud.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's I genuinely can't wait. It's and I think it can be a stepping stone to future things as well. The fact that it'll then give me the confidence. Oh well, I can do that. So if I can do that, I can go and do something else. And it can hopefully it can be a step forward in my recovery as well. So.
One of the highlights of the past year, of course, Chris, was the video that you and Dickie worked on ahead of Up Next Mania. And to be quite honest, I watch a video like that, and it kind of surprises me that you would have difficulty, because I felt you seemed like such a natural at doing it. Was the process of creating it difficult for you, that video?
Not really, because it was just me sat in my living room, and just going into me pretend like for years and years. It's always been that thing of I'll pretend to be a wrestler, and what would I say in a promo, and this, that, and the other, and it just kind of came. Okay, well I'll say this, and I'd had a couple of tips of we'll go into this bit and go into that bit, but everything it was like bullet points. Dickie gave me a couple of bullet points. Go here, but the rest was up to me, and it was just like, well, I'll just set the camera in front of me and just talk shit for. I think it was like 10, 12 minutes. I think I sent Dickie that he cut down into that video.
Because that doing something like that to me would like make me nervous, knowing that like I would have to play try to cut a professional wrestling character's promo, and knowing that people are going to end up watching it, that would make me nervous. So I mean, I guess maybe it's just a bit of a contrast in seeing that like there are certain things that clearly you're very comfortable with that might seem not a big deal to you, but it would be a big deal to somebody like me.
100%. It as Mox said last night in his promo, if everybody was the same, life would be boring. And it's one of those things I'm comfortable with. One thing, yourself might be uncomfortable with that, and I think life would be boring if we were all the same in that way.
It's certainly true. Look, Chris, when you did that promo, and if you felt a sense of groundedness or confidence, or like feeling self-assured in that, bring that to the surface when you're doing things that feel a bit more scary. I know for me personally, when I'm on stage behind a drum set performing, like I feel most alive. I feel like even if I miss a note or drop a stick, I still feel like I can't mess up. I just feel very in a flow state and very much alive. So when I go into situations in which I feel a bit less confident or scared, again, I imagine that I'm about to walk on stage and be behind the drums because that helps prime my energy state into a present reality in which I trust myself more and I feel more grounded. And these are exercises that I help walk through most of the people that I work with as well. So I think it's great that you can point to an activity or a time in which you feel more confident and alive, because that means that energy potential is always there within you, just waiting to be drawn back to the surface.
Thank you so much, Chris. We have a few calls here to get to, so we're gonna have to move on. But always appreciate your contributions to the Wellness Policy and everything, every one of the other shows on the Post Wrestling Network. Let's go up next to Miguel. Miguel, welcome to the Wellness Policy. What's going on?
Hey guys, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Doing
Hi,
well.
Miguel.
Okay. Just making sure because I'm on a hotel Wi-Fi, so bear with me.
No, we gotcha.
Okay. So I posted on the Discord, on the Wellness Policy Discord channel about my, I guess, struggles. Because I was going to I took a board examination yesterday. And it's been a goal for this past couple of years to try and pass it. But I've struggled with it because it's a bitch of a test. it's a really hard test. And I've tried to set up goals for myself, or habits to be more positive, change my vocabulary to I might pass it to I will pass it. The being kind to myself, even if it's meditating a couple of minutes in the morning to hopefully better influence the day, And I once did a vision board and I felt like I half-assed it because it was an assignment and not a willingful act to actually do a vision board and stuff. Well, if you don't do it, you don't get points, And I hearing Jordan talk about it, and also mentioning copying what Chris is saying about Moxley's promo last night. I felt like, you know what, I think I'm gonna do that and be kind to myself and put some put my goals into physical aspect and journaling, and it's just those little things to actually make my goals a little bit more reachable and be able to finally grasp them.
Sorry, have you? Your exam was today, right?
It was yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
So, I'm a graduate from I have a doctorate in pharmacy, and so the board examination is for basically pharmacy. So without it, I can't work as a pharmacist. So it's been a struggle because it's 4 years of education condensed into a 6-hour-ish test.
Wow.
It's anything that you can possibly imagine a pharmacist should know.
Wow.
It's random. It's a thing, and yeah.
That pressure sounds intense, but the tough part is over now, and you just kind of have to sit back and wait for the results, right?
Exactly, and it's I struggle with the pressure. So yeah, I've been trying to take care of myself. I'll be kind to myself. Family can be helpful, and sometimes it cannot be helpful. So I've gone to a psychologist. I've done the work to get here. And that's pretty much all I got for now.
Congrats to you, man.
Respect, man. Yeah, look, I understand the experience. Once I got my degree, I still needed to pass a national exam in order to be a psychotherapist, or to be licensed as one. And that was many, many months going through an 800-page study guide, and it was like all of this time and money and energy all riding on one exam. It was incredibly overwhelming. But yeah, a lot of the things that you've mentioned, as far as just being kind to ourselves and putting in the work and trusting in that, knowing that if we don't pass it, we'll have another shot at it. And what's always helped me with things like that is just, even when I had to pass the test to get a driver's license, I just thought to myself, like, think of all the other people that were plenty capable enough to do this as well. Like, I can do it too. And thinking that about a lot of things in life has helped normalize the fear and make me feel a bit more competent in trying something that feels a bit scary.
Right. And my girlfriend verbalized this really well. Like, you survive 4 years of pharmacy school. It's another test. It's not the huge big boss battle at the end of the game. It's just another test that you can pass, and then you're gonna pass, and you're gonna kick ass. So it's not impossible.
Thank you so much for sharing, Miguel. Yeah.
Thank you, bud.
Thank you, guys.
And of course, Miguel was making reference to the Post Wrestling Discord, where a lot of the regulars that you might have heard on this podcast often contribute. And Jordan's always there. I check in when I can. But it's a lot of different conversation between the Wellness Policy channel. We've also got the Wrestling channel, of course, TV, movies, really anything you want to talk about. It's the place where we gather as the Post Wrestling community. So encourage everybody to check that out at postwrestling.com/Discord. Totally free to join. Let's go up next to Jake from the Windy City. What's going on, Jake?
What up, Jake?
Hey, what's up, guys? It's a real pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Hey,
likewise.
As always, thank you.
As always. Yeah, just to keep it brief here, this year in 2022, I definitely feel a lot of excitement and also a lot of anxiety for me as well as a college graduate coming up, graduating in May. Getting involved in the world of broadcasting. It really brings a lot of Dickie Bird has a good shout out. So it is my birthday tomorrow, so
happy birthday.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. It's like it really brings up just a lot of questions in my life, and it really helps like having a good community, which during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, which was a real struggle for me, but it was really great to during the past year I've gotten to got the chance to be involved with a small Bible group that a friend recommended to me, and it really helped with all my emotions and all my with my self-confidence as well. And we're all like, we're like the best of friends with that. So it really is a great one. And I think for me in 2022, it's like, everybody talks about like, when graduating and getting into the real world, it can be can be very intimidating. But to be honest with you, I'm really optimistic. I know that finding full-time jobs and internships can be a pain in the ass during this pandemic and all that. I'm kind of thankful that I'm starting a radio internship in a couple of weeks, so it's really excited to just get my creative juices flowing and I think and also I would like to, for 2022, my biggest goal is also as well is to read more books. To be honest with you, I know that you guys talked about on the show a couple of months back, but I think it's because the amount of books Pollock reads every week, and that's a huge. It was a huge motivator to me, and and I'm definitely going to start because obviously with my love of wrestling, I've started to read a couple of a couple of great books, as especially Jim Ross's latest book here. I've definitely enjoyed some of the funniest stories that he had in here, and also some spiritual encouragement books and just some life lessons. Definitely with this one, A Young Man's Guide to Making Right Choices. This is a gift that my uncle gave to me during my birthday last year. So yeah, it's by a guy named Jim George, which really is it's more for like high schoolers and college graduates like myself to, what life is like and what lessons that you can definitely take, being kind to one another and all that. So yeah, that's it really is helpful all this with all this time, and really excited about this next year.
That's awesome.
That's great, man. It sounds like you're in a really wonderful headspace. It sounds like you got an internship lined up. It seems like you have some energy around. It seems like you have some vision for what you want to be doing. And you got a fucking birthday coming up tomorrow. Life seems all right for you, bud.
Yeah, I mean, it really is wonderful. I mean, I haven't seen some of my cousins in a couple years. So, my cousin who's living in San Diego was taking the time to fly over here, just to hang out and just to hang out. So it really is a huge blessing, that this hopefully this pandemic will be behind us and all that, and we can get together with our loved ones. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that, I'm perfect. None of us are. I mean, John Moxley said it the best last night, when if everyone's perfect, then the world would be so boring. So
it is incredible to me. Like, we've had 3 people on the show reference that John Moxley promo, and I had a feeling while watching it last night that it would have that effect, but in short order, I think like a guy like that saying the words that he did sets such a positive example for men out there, and women, of course. But predominantly we're talking about I would say maybe a professional wrestling audience, which is traditionally demographically men. But a man saying those words has so much positive effect. What do you think, Jordan, about Moxley's promo last night?
Wrestling can be anything, and if that's what wrestling can be, I want to see a lot more of that. It's kind of what we got into with my segment on the post Christmas show. I loved it, and specifically we talked about Moxley and Kingston being guys from a traditional masculine cut of cloth, and for the two of them to be elevating these types of mindsets, and to be sharing them publicly as very influential figures. They are literally changing the culture by doing that, and so much respect and appreciation for them using their platform for the greatest good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you so much for
thank you so much, guys.
Jake.
God bless you.
Have
Appreciate
a great day tomorrow.
Thank you.
Let's go up next to our last call of the episode, and we go to a favorite around here, Hansi. Hansi, what's going on?
Yo, what's going on, guys? Good show as always. I was initially not gonna put my hand up because I didn't know what I was gonna add to this, but as much more callers talked, and I was like, yeah, I might as well kind of put out there. I don't know. I guess maybe because I've been doing this my own little venting podcast thing, whatever. I sorry, I think I might try to try to network a little bit more and try to get back into the comedy thing, whatever, you know what I mean? Because I feel like, I have some observations and all that, but it's hard to you know what I mean? Because I always feel like, there's, it just feels like, comedy is so limited in the direction it goes, because it's either you're super politically correct or you got to align with people who are quote unquote not politically correct. And I always thought that, comedy should be more advanced. There's ways to advance comedy. And I think the comedy industry itself kind of holds itself back a little bit with, it becomes, more, territorial and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm going to try. At least my goal is to try and come up with, certain, premises for, whether it's TV shows or movies or whatever. I don't know if it'll get done or anything, but I got to at least try it out. I'm always afraid to do it. And again, like Jake said, that Moxley promo. This is the best thing about wrestling, man. It's whenever there's a relatable baby face, like a Moxley and shit, what they're called, and Moxley seems like some guy that he knows how the industry bullshit goes, so he has to speak in code. But if you know what he's talking about, then like it really hits you a little bit more harder about like the demons that are always fighting you and telling you not to like give up and all that. So I always find like promos like that. And that's why I'm saying good guy promos like that can exist and inspire people, if that makes any sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, thank you for being able to vocalize it. Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that we like timed this show, the night right after that, because I think we see the immediate results of, I think what a great professional wrestling babyface can achieve for men that are adults. Like as kids, I mean, these are morality tales that I mean often are designed for children, but I mean I think they're just as resonant when we're adults as well. So that's awesome, Hansi. Best of luck.
Well, no, to just kind of to just go on that point. What they call it? I also feel like because like for so long we've thought like, okay, this is how a man's supposed to be. We can't be vulnerable on any level. We can't do this on any level. We can't talk about our trauma on any level because it comes across like you're crying and all that. And if you always look at like certain characters in wrestling who always have valid points, right? Then like they always come across like, oh, you're not manly enough. And I just think that there's ways to like do it where like you don't have to be like this one type, like you don't got to be a Steve Austin where like you do like all you're doing is just causing chaos and not like reflecting on like who you are kind of in a way, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of time that misses. And I feel like sometimes in this era, we're kind of like in a way people want to reboot the 90s and go back to that regressive style, even though I think there's more layers to like, unpeel if you actually go through the vulnerability and what cracks you as a human being and your psychology and all that. But I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks for taking my call. I know you guys are trying to get out now, but I appreciate you. Jordan, you're a good dude. Wade, thanks a lot again. Always nice talking to you guys, man.
Thanks, Hansi.
Thank you, Hansi.
Jordan, yeah, we are kind of hitting our time limit here for the wellness policy. But do you have any, final thoughts about the topic? Anything you'd like to convey to the crowd?
No, honestly, well, one, I think I leave right now in this moment with two things. I'm very appreciative of everyone that has shared and those just offering their support and attention in Zoom. As we stated, we prepped very little for this, and we promoted very little as well, especially what the topic would be. So the fact that so many people have been interested and willing to share is really energizing for me. So I just feel deeply appreciative. And then I'm just thinking about this Moxley promo, man. Like you and I, we love pro wrestling. Everyone listening to this show really, really loves pro wrestling. And what I saw last night with that promo and to see its resonance being reflected in these calls today makes me very excited about the future of professional wrestling and AEW more specifically. It's something that I'm a fan of, and it feels like such a elevated contemporary version, a true state of the art of pro wrestling. So I love that a show like the Wellness Policy can intersect with something so timely and mainstream in pro wrestling as well. So I feel great. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jordan, as always. I actually ended up really enjoying this conversation, and sometimes I find like the more loose the format, the less prep we have, the more I think it encourages everybody else to step in and to fill in the conversation with their own opinions and thoughts. So, it's always great to hear from everybody who tunes in live, and again, once a month on a Thursday at typically about 3 p.m. we will be back for the Wellness Policy. Don't know the topic yet next month, but I'm always open to suggestions. You can, of course, tweet me at Way0937 or tweet Jordan. I'm sure he would love to interact with you and discuss any of the topics that we've mentioned here. You are at Jordan Beatwell on Instagram, on Twitter, and of course, as I mentioned, postwrestling.com/discord, where you can interact with members of the post wrestling community, and specifically to the Wellness Policy in the Wellness Policy channel as well. Totally free to join. It's the place to be. and you can even share your Wordle score, perhaps. So anyway, that is it. I encourage everybody to share this podcast, because we are putting this on a Patreon feed, and it might not be as visible. So if it's helpful for you, please tweet this out. Send out a link either to this or to the YouTube version of the show, and encourage people to join in. So thank you guys so much. Talk to you next time.